said he was. Good? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Record of attendance. Linda, you're good? Declarations of conflict of interest? Not yet. Approval of agenda. Any additions or deletions? Amen.
Whoa, no, not even yet.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to add an item, Your Worship, so it will be on the agenda. I may not need it. Update.
What's that?
Update.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the update is. I don't know, it sounds strange, but there's a couple of items that I think we're going to be addressing, but I want to make sure they're addressed.
Okay.
So that's why I'm putting update in, because there's some questions. We don't have a space here for questions to, yeah, so anyway, that's usually questions to the chair is at the council meeting.
Oh,
so,
that's why.
so I'm just
Okay.
putting update there just to cover
okay,
that.
Good. Well, I'm putting you under 7H, just to get her done. Okay, go ahead.
How about Mahone Bay?
Good. Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. There might be, I may have to call conflict, but I'll let you know
Okay,
at the time. Thank you.
good. Okay, a motion to approve the agenda with the additions. Moved and seconded. Discussion? Questions been called? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Priorities. Did you want to speak to those, CAO? Go ahead.
So thank you, Your Worship. So I've updated the priority report. I'll just quickly run through some of the updates for you. With regard to increasing the tax base, as you know, a couple months ago, we completed the health and wellness designation. Just to let you know, we have not yet received an application for development there, but we are fully expecting one to come through in the near future. Next Tuesday is our next Planning Advisory Committee meeting, and the item with regards to providing additional development rights to our 2 lots along Main Street will be on that agenda. We are awaiting the Utility Review Board decision on the appeal on the 6-foot strip rezoning on 126 Brunswick Street. That was heard on July 9th, and so we were told within 30 days we'd have a decision on that, so we're waiting for that. On the planner's position, I can tell you that we have done some interviews. There is no decision imminent, but we're continuing to follow up with at least one of the candidates and continuing to cast the net for additional candidates at the same time. The Regional Enterprise Network, I believe an offer and perhaps an announcement on a CEO for that organization is imminent. Okay. The airport, in terms of the...
Can I ask the CAO question, or should we wait to the end? Or?
Go ahead now.
Yeah, no, go
I was
ahead.
just wondering, Jeff, you said about there's an offer imminent on the CEO position. There's been interviews held for the other development. Oh, okay, for our economic, okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
So the airport has been working on the aircraft recycling project, and the request for expressions of interest to companies in the industry is just about ready to go out. So that is where we move really from the study stage into the potential business development stage. So the study has suggested there is a case, a reasonable case. Now the test will be: is there a business out there that wants to put together a business plan to actually develop something in Yarmouth? See, under increased government efficiency.
Oh, sorry.
Just one item to the CAO. I notice offers continue to be received
Yep.
on town-owned real estate. We
Yes.
don't see a lot of movement on that front, yet I am seeing a lot of property sold in the town of Yarmouth. I'm wondering if it might be proper to request maybe if we could meet with Mr. Randall to discuss where we are to date with this, and maybe we need to be more creative in our selling process, or somehow I'm off the general opinion that we really need, I mean, one of our priorities is increase the tax base. We're sitting on a vast amount of real estate. If there's some way we can encourage development of that real estate, we should look at it. So I'd like to, maybe if council agrees, if we could have Mr. Randall in, just where are we at with this, and I know we've had some offers which are very low, but it would be nice to have an update, and maybe we as a council should maybe look at a strategy of how we can maybe move some of our real estate holdings and make it into the tax base. So I'd like to make that a motion that council direct staff to invite Mr. Randall in to the next committee of the whole meeting to discuss where we're at with real estate sales and suggestions that we may have to develop a strategy to effectively market the town's real estate holdings.
Moved and seconded. How are you with that?
Oh, great.
Yeah. Good discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. CAO?
Yep, just further on that, there are a couple of items, property related, to be discussed in camera at the end of this meeting, so, and of course, the motion's passed, so we will make sure Mr. Randall is aware we'd like to have him in. So, under increased government efficiency, there are some intermunicipal agreements that we've dealt with in the last little while. We're down to the dotting of i's and crossing the t's on the Mariner Center agreement. Once that everybody's satisfied with the language in that one, we'll give it a final blessing here at the table, and we'll be good to go there on three agreements. And continuing to work on more. Speaking of more, some of that is related to the Industrial Commission in terms of dealing with assets and operations there. Just for your information, the Commission has had to postpone its last two meetings due to a lack of quorum, so some difficulty there getting a quorum during the summer months. Under efficient infrastructure.
Go ahead.
Hate to be asking questions, but on the building inspector, last night, Your Worship, we had a meeting here with the stakeholders in the downtown, very successful, and thank you to the CAO and Dave Warner for organizing that. It was excellent. One of the items that came up concerned the whole business of renovations building. And I'm not sure where we are with this, but it is a concern. My understanding that under, and I can be corrected, that under the Canadian Building Code, there is some flexibility for older buildings. In the past, we weren't as flexible, I understand, in that area, and I'm just wondering if it's possible to get maybe a little update on where are we standing, because that's going to be a huge issue in our revitalization, especially in the second floors. We were very limited in scope, shall we say. We had certain very high priorities, but I do know that under the building code, from a heritage point of view, there is some flexibility. Not a lot, but there is some. And I'm wondering, I'm not sure who our building inspector is. I know we're contracting, we have an arrangement going back and forth, but has there been any discussions as a CAO with regard to how we can accommodate businesses in the downtown of Yarmouth and the older structures to work with them rather than maybe discouraging them from doing the necessary renovations?
Go ahead.
Yeah. There's been no intentional discouraging. I'll start with that. But sometimes the challenges that the building code presents themselves can be discouraging. And so if you'd like, we actually have a few different people working on our building inspection at this time. We have John Sullivan and his staff from the District of Argyll that we have a contract with, but we also have a contract with a level 2 building inspector who used to work for Argyll, who is now a private contractor. So we have a few different people with fingers in the pie, and from what I'm hearing, providing good service. So I would have either Mr. Sullivan or Laura Lee come in and perhaps speak at the next committee of the whole about second floor development in our downtown. I have to be honest and say I don't know if either of them have had any applications or have had any direct inquiries from property owners in that situation, so I don't know that they've been in the buildings. They would only go in on invitation, basically on the basis of an application, but they can come and speak, perhaps one of them come and speak to the issue to council, if that would be desirable.
And just another one, further to that, when there was no discussion here, and I don't see it coming up unless I've missed it, regarding the status of the former cotton mill. And I'm wondering, there's been some discussion going back and forth as to what's happening there on the building. And I understand that there may be some possible viable use for the building. Are we moving in any clear direction for the cotton mill as such? I know it's before the PAC for the medicinal marijuana. I know there's been advertisement for that in the Vanguard, and some discussion centered around the usability of the Dominion Textile, former Dominion Textile plant as a site for that. Is it possible to get maybe an update on where we're at with that? Because that's a huge infrastructure project.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, the last item I mentioned was the issue that we've had a little difficulty getting a quorum of the Industrial Commission. So one of the things that has recently occurred with regard to Dominion Textiles, the former Dominion Textiles plant, is the District of Argyll has made available Mr. Sullivan to do an assessment of that building. With his background, he's also subcontracted the services of Mike Williams, an engineer, to help him with that process. My understanding is he has a report ready for the Industrial Commission, which lays out some of the costs and options going forward. So I believe the commission has another meeting set, but the date eludes me, but it's in the near future. They'll get a report from Mr. Sullivan, which will help. With regard to the medicinal marijuana, the Planning Advisory Committee has an amendment working its way through right now that would allow medicinal marijuana facilities in certain zones within the town, and the waterfront is one of the recommended zones. And I have heard anecdotally some people believe that the Dominion Textiles building might be a suitable location, but I'm not qualified. I have no experience in growing marijuana to be able to speak to whether or not that facility is, other than its size, suitable for the industry. So it is there, and certainly if a company that is in the business were to approach the Industrial Commission, I think they would be anxious to have a discussion, whether it's that industry or any other industry around purchasing that building.
And further, Your Worship, with that building, are we still entertaining leases? Or I understand that we may not be leasing property there. We're letting things wind down. Can we get maybe an update on that? I'm curious where we're at with that arrangement.
We have, for the last several years, several being at least 3, we've been only entertaining short-term leases. So 1-year leases, but renewable. Because the future of the building has been basically undetermined. Now, there was a long-term lease on the second floor that was signed maybe 5 years ago with, I believe, was a 10-year lease, and that lease has now been negotiated away. Basically, the term of that lease has been negotiated away. The tenant is still in the property and paying, but it was a significant encumbrance in terms of looking at selling the building if the second floor, the middle section of the building, was committed at a below market rate to another business. Made it fairly unattractive.
Good.
Okay. So under infrastructure investments, streetscape improvements for Main Street are in what I call the pre-planning stage. Yesterday, the engineer and myself accompanied the folks from Acoustics, their engineer, the planner, landscape architect, downtown to look at some of the existing infrastructure and start their process of planning what the improvements might look like. We've had a little bit of bad news with regard to the heat recovery at the Mariner Center in their process of getting that in place. It now appears that their estimate exceeds the budget that we have, and so Mr. Dares is working to try and bring that back in line if possible, and I don't know what direction that will go. If it'll mean, we will get an update on that. Unfortunately, yeah, the cost is looking a little bit prohibitive. Priorities for the Bill Canada Fund have been submitted to the Infrastructure Secretariat, although there still is not an application intake. They were just seeking that information for planning purposes. The Clements Avenue Trail, I'm sure everybody is aware, is under construction, cutting from Parade Street across to Stars Road. The we are doing a non-destructive investigation, or at least we have a proposal for a non-destructive investigation into the Glebe Street garage. So talked to the engineer about that. He's reviewing and will make a recommendation. And we may look at a longer-term plan, infrastructure plan for that facility. And we have a proposal in hand to look at the analysis of 90 Water Street. That is the Killam building, to look at lease sell our options going forward once the current leases expire. In terms of being more open and inviting, the update.
Yep, sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship. Clements Avenue Trail, there was some correspondence from Larry DeVue with regard to that. I know Councillor Dawes and Councillor Dennis and myself, we have been responding to him. Could we get an update? Like, he did raise a very interesting point, and I'm wondering maybe an update from you or Mr. Ernst. How are we going to be able to accommodate that?
I'll start the update, and I'll let Dave jump in if he has more information than what I have. So, yes, the issue that Mr. DeVue raised is kind of obvious. The trail will dead end on a section of Stars Road that doesn't have either a crosswalk or a sidewalk to lead you anywhere. So you're left with either cutting across properties to get to a suitable crossing, or trying to cross 3 lanes to get across a fairly wide road to the mall. So I did go out there myself and looked at the situation. I talked to Mr. Ernst about it. We've talked about a couple of options, and I believe he's in the process of looking at the costs associated with those. One being, obviously, if you're going to put a crosswalk across Stars Road at that point, you'd want to do it in a way that you're sure you do everything you can to stop traffic. Some people have, unfortunately, a belief that if you step out on a crosswalk, somehow magical safeguards go up that prevent a car from mowing you down. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And so Mr. Ernst is aware of some situations in other places where there are actually traffic lights that can be actuated by a pedestrian to provide safe crossing across similar roads. The other option would be to extend sidewalk along that side, or sidewalk or some other pedestrian way along the south side of Stars Road to either Pleasant Street or Charles Crosby Drive, to then allow for safe crossing at a signalized intersection. So I don't know, Dave, if you have anything to update on that other than that you're doing that investigation. Press the red button.
This was the first of hopefully many active transportation projects that we're going to be doing. I was aware that it basically dead ends, but I mean, you got to start somewhere, and we can add on to it as we go along. But I did get some costs for what they call a half traffic light to permit pedestrians to cross Stars Road. The costing for a half set by the end of the trail would be about $80,000. And that would include pedestrian lights and overhead lights as well.
Go ahead.
What would be the comparable cost of a sidewalk? Have you figured that out at all?
I haven't priced a sidewalk. We had looked at that previously, but there was a few problems along that side of the Stars Road that kind of made it difficult to do it, but they'll have to be resolved in order to go ahead with it.
Councillor Dawes, or unless you want to, I'm just going by what, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you would repeat that for me, please. $80,000, is that for a stoplight, or did I understand a half light?
It's called a half light. It is activated by pedestrians pressing a button, and the overhead lights traffic lights will turn, normally they would be green, but when they're activated, the overhead lights turn red, permitting pedestrians to cross the road.
And the time allowed for pedestrians to cross that road is that determined by you or
Well,
how?
It would depend on the width of the road for one thing, but it would be in the design phase. I mean, that would be determined, so.
It would be determined,
In the design.
I'm sorry, I'm
In
having
the
a thick day.
design
It must be-
phase.
It's not foggy out, it's foggy in my head today.
In the design phase, and we could set the time.
Okay, we can,
Yeah,
all
we
right,
can set
thank
it.
you very much, that's what I was looking for. So that would be $80,000 as compared to a sidewalk, which would cost an extension, a sidewalk to go probably eastward up to the nearest, I guess, would be Charles Crosby Drive.
Haven't priced that out, but as I said before, there is some difficulties in doing that at this point in time because of the width of the right-of-way.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Dennis?
Okay, that was basically,
Okay.
that was going to be my question, because I was wondering if instead of going straight to Stars Road, if we could have made that angle to go to Charles Crosby Drive, and then we already have a set of traffic lights and everything there.
Well, that is probably in the future. At this, when the road is constructed, that was the plan, to extend the trail up along there and come out at Charles Crosby Drive.
Right. So you're constructing the trail now. Is that going to be on the right-hand side coming from Parade, or is it going to be on the left-hand side?
It's on the right-hand, or east side,
The right?
yeah.
Okay. So when we put a road in, when you add to the left-hand side, then you're going to have to cross over that trail. So that's going to stop people from going on the trail. Right,
No,
when you-
the trail would be rerouted up to follow the road right away to Charles Crosby Drive.
Right.
I mean, as well, you could continue it along across the roadway to Stars Road, but if you wished, but the plan would be to continue it up James Street right away to Charles Crosby Drive.
Right.
I like to see a walk that as well, and I can see your concerns with the right-of-ways because you've got some very narrow hunks of land there. And now those right-of-ways, we have private property owners I suggest we'd have to work with there in order to get a sidewalk in. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
It comes to legal issues, we'd have to negotiate
Yeah,
with them.
well-
But you would think, Your Worship, that I think a sidewalk on that side of Stars is long overdue. I mean, when you look at it, we have one side now, which is the mall side, but then we have a fair number of businesses on that other side, on the south side of Stars. And I think this would be an encouragement to develop that more and also to rent more of those spaces. So I'm thinking bang for the buck, the light. And to answer Councillor Dawes' concern about the setting, I noticed in Truro when I was there for 3 long weeks in my mini walks, they have timers right on the lights, and I assume we'll probably be doing that 13, 14 countdown, like you plan the 15 seconds and you get so much. So the person crossing will be able to visually see how much time they have, which is a really good system. That's great. Thank you very much.
Good, any more questions? Okay, go ahead, CAO.
So, just getting to the last section, I think we were...
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Thank you, no, I turned it off. Just into the last section about being more open and inviting. We had a workshop here, and this isn't in the report, but I'll reference it at this point. We had a workshop here last night on the facade improvement program that we're developing for Main Street and downtown, and we had 15 people from 15 businesses or property owners in the downtown who, before they left the room, signed up for a sidewalk conference today with the consultant. I had another phone call this morning, so that makes 16, and we have, at least at this point, committed to be able to fund up to 20. So that's a very good start. That's the best first day response that these consultants have had on any facade program they've done in any community. So that's really a strong sign of engagement of the business community downtown and a willingness to invest some of their own money to help and bring our downtown up.
And can I just ask a question? If we hit 20, we're going over.
Well, there are two. Yeah, okay. We may be able to go over 20 just with the amount of money we've already discussed, and the reason I say that is if the way the program is intended would be $5,000 of town money to match up to 50%. So if somebody did $10,000 worth of renovations to the facade of their building, we could fund up to $5,000 of that. But there will be some businesses who either won't need to do $5,000 worth or won't want to or be able to. And so their application, let's say, might be $4,000, and so our contribution would be $2,000, our money goes a little further. So we'll see when the applications come in what the amount of requests are, and if there's a need to go back to the well, to come back to council and consider putting more money into the program this year, then I'll do that. We won't start turning away applications unless we have thoroughly discussed the possibility of more funding in the program.
Good. And I think I'm going to talk to him about a COA as well. He just mentioned that possibility.
Yes, no, we have, when we began this process, we engaged Mr. Warner Dave Warner to assist us in getting the word out, and he did a commendable job as evidenced by the uptake. One of the other things he undertook for us was to do some, say, preliminary investigation with ACOA about the opportunity of funding. So we're hopeful that ACOA will be a partner in the first round of this program. But if not, if they can't be in the first round, then maybe in round 2 or round 3. It looks like it's going to be a successful program, so we're hopeful we'll get them in on the ground floor.
Good. Councillor Milo?
Yeah, just a question, Your Worship, maybe through the CAO. Last night, the geography was discussed. The area that was selected was from Porter Street to Forest Street. And since then, I've had a couple of calls. And in fact, I had an individual I met with this morning. How rigid are we on that? And I'll explain why. The Yarmouth Jail has just been purchased. We have the Firefighters Museum next door. There's 2 hunks there of very substantial buildings sitting there.
Tony's across the street, too.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately, and also you're quite right, the new place that's opening across the street. And then I'm looking Yarmouth South, we have the old Peter Nichols building, which is a beautiful piece of architecture. I'm not saying the owners of any of these would be interested, but they are probably the first blush glance you're going to get when you enter into the whole town streetscape. Now, considering that the jail is, the old former jail property is in the process, new owners, and they're looking at doing something very proactive there. The Firefighters Museum is pretty well as it is now. I mean, that's as it was when it used to be the old Motor Mart, and that's fine. But is there any way that are we really fixed in that area, or could we maybe, I'm not sure who's approving these projects down the road. I don't know if it's a council thing or it's a staff thing, or I don't know who's doing it, but I really think we should try to have some flexibility, especially to that immediate area leading into that zone. I hate to see us do like Truro did, is, you know, they put it all over town and it looks nice, but they fixed up 1 or 2 buildings here and 1 or 2 buildings there. And I think, Your Worship, you commented last night that we need to have that nice look, and it's exciting. We have 16. I know we're going to get more than 16. I'm very confident of that, and I'm fully supportive of the mayor in that initiative. But I'm wondering, could we look at that as a possible extension of the area?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Your Worship, that is carved in jello. I guess the easiest way to say it is that obviously the reason we decided to go on one street, on one facade, Main Street facing, was because if we do what has been done in some other communities, it becomes so spread out and so sporadic that the impact is lost. And so we talked about Porter to Forest as sort of a concentrated area to try and have impact in the first year, so that would help to build momentum. But recognizing there is some activity right now just north of that area, kind of what I've been saying, and I don't make the final decision on this, you folks do. What I've been saying is that we're going to try and focus the effort. If we have money, we'll edge it out as the interest suggests, and if it's successful, obviously, we'll be talking for next year of adding another phase, another pot of money, a new intake. So we don't want to discourage anybody, but we do want to have that focused impact. So when the acoustics folks, we were doing our Main Street walk yesterday, and they were taking pictures, I encouraged them to go up as far as the jail, take pictures, both sides of the street, so that we don't lose any opportunity there.
So that's carved in jello, and I'm hoping so are the finances, like, because we said that last night. If we need to ante up a little bit more, this is 16 in the first day. Hello. Go ahead, CAO. No, Councillor Dennis.
And I think, because I asked that question last night, and I think it was because the acoustics plan was for the core downtown starting out.
Yeah.
And then as CAO started, that maybe next year we could keep adding after we start on the core.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. CAO?
Thank you. Yeah, the only other new update, I guess, that I want to point out in the report was that in terms of being open and inviting, and again, we talked about it at the last council meeting, but the cleanup from the Arthur storm of July 5th, I believe, is complete now, Dave?
Yes. Our part is complete.
Your part is complete, and thank you for that. Thank you and your staff, but also the citizens did a great job of as much as possible with all the limbs and branches and so on, putting them out in the most orderly way possible, so that our town, even in the worst of that, actually didn't look as bad as it could have. People were respectful of trying to keep things neat. So that's what I have, Your Worship, under that report.
I was speaking with a couple of your staff, and they said, we're just doing our job. And I said, that might be true, but they really did their job. Like, it was quick, it was good. So, thanks. Okay, good. CAO report. Go ahead.
Hey, Your Worship, this will circulate on your desk this afternoon. What it is, of course, is a summary of the actions taken on motions of council from previous months and sort of where we stand with each of those. It's for your information. If you have any questions, I can entertain them now or at any time in the future.
Good. Fire Department report. Welcome, Chief. Any questions for the fire chief?
Yeah, I got one, Your Worship.
Certainly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. John, what about, I know you've put a lot of thought and effort into the fire equipment and what we have and what we can get rid of and what we combine with other fire equipment, but for a longer term project, and I hope you're here for the next 15 to 20 years like the last fire chief, what about a new fire hall? When are we going to start that process again? I know myself and Councilor McIsaac, the CAO, and who else went up? The Deputy Fire Chief, John Wainwright, went to Berwick one day to have a look at there, but I'm just wondering where that is on the plate, because I think for recruitment efforts and for everything else, I think that would be a great tool. It would be a new facility, and from my understanding, the building is, that's my neighborhood and your neighborhood now, the building is over 35 years old with a very short, I think, 25 or 30-year lifespan. So just where are we in that process and where it is on your plate?
Right now, I don't have it on my plate right now. The priorities I put in place were, first of all, the safety of the firefighters on scene and their training, and getting more firefighters to make them more safe, because right now we really lack in that human resources area. So all my resources for the first year and the second year are going to be put into that. So I haven't made any plans whatsoever for a new fire hall right now. There is some upgrades that were done to the fire hall a couple of years ago, which extended the lifespan. And there's also some ongoing maintenance and stuff like that that we're doing to the station. So right now, I don't have a plan right now.
Any more more questions for the chief?
Just maybe one.
Yep, I can't.
But I think, Your Worship, I think, I'm sorry, I turned it off. I think it might be a good exercise to maybe hit the road again and to look, because I think we're going to need a new facility over the next several years, but to put it on there and to look forward to, or something to look at, I think it's going to be something we're going to need in the community. And even with amalgamation and all the other stuff, we're still going to need that, that infrastructure here in the town of Yarmouth.
Good. Ready for a road trip?
May I ask a quick question? Amalgamation of the fire departments? or
No,
is-
I'm talking about amalgamation of the municipal units.
Oh,
Ooh, John, now, we're not going to get
No.
into that part.
And the other amalgamation might not happen either, but just, we need to be thinking. Okay, Councillor Dennis?
I just had a question on MVA on your report. Does that mean motor vehicle accidents?
yes, it does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that may change in the future, because now in the fire service, we call it motor vehicle collision and not accident anymore, because some of them aren't accidents.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Any more questions for the chief? Thank you. Planning Department report. Yep, go ahead.
Sorry. It said in the report that there's going to be some new siding, windows, and doors put on the fire department. The closing date for tender is August the 11th. How much do we have set aside for that?
Good? Planning. Is there any planning? Yeah, there it is. Okay. Any questions on the planning? Operational services? Any questions for the engineer? Go ahead.
Didn't you miss me?
No, actually, I didn't.
I'm heartbroken. That was cruel. Dave, where do we stand with the light standards for Yarmouth South?
The light standards actually should be here shortly. I just got a call from the custom broker telling me that they're going to clear customs shortly as soon as we pay our fees. So they'll be here shortly, and we'll be starting that project within the next little while.
Good. Any more questions? Go ahead, Counselor.
So we get them out of the U.S.?
Yes.
So there's no Canadian companies that carry anything like that?
To match the existing standards, which were the original that were on Main Street, they're suppliers in the U.S. And there's nothing that really matches from Canada.
Okay.
Any more questions? You look, oh dear, Counselor Mooney. You looked like you had a question. Okay? Good. Finance Department. Oh, sorry. No, it's my, I can't see through these glasses. Go ahead, you're on.
Thank you, Your Worship. The wastewater treatment plant outfall. Could you explain that, please? I didn't understand what that meant. It's under number 7.
In the storm that we had, the outfall pipe broke loose from its concrete collars, so we
Yes.
have to reinstall that. So I'll be going out to tender shortly with that. We're going to be purchasing the concrete collars separately from a supplier in order to get moving on it. So
Great. Great. Thank you very much. And I'm now going to, if I may,
Go ahead.
continue on and ask this of the CAO. I know everyone's busy. A lot of things have been going on, but a tour of that of the wastewater treatment plant, is that still on the books?
Go ahead.
Legislative.
Sure,
Thank you.
sure. Yes, maybe as early as next week. Yeah, I'm around next week. I'd love to do that tour again, so if we can arrange something next week with the operator. Assuming Rob is around, I haven't checked the vacation schedules, but if the treatment plant operator is around, I'd like him to do the tour. He's the most knowledgeable person on site there, so if he's available, we'll do something on a sunny afternoon next week.
On a warm, sunny afternoon.
Warm, sunny afternoon.
Thank you.
Did you see the second page there? Green Street?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Any more questions for the engineer? Finance Department report.
Do we want to read that out loud, though?
No?
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 I thought maybe.
There's all kinds of good stuff in this. There's a lot going on, Dave. A lot, that's good. Okay, finance. So Jerry's not here. Oh, go ahead, thank you.
Just to give you an update there, we are in the implementation of our new financial system, and a few little changes in process as we work through it. The Richter system that we used to use was a little different, and so there are some nice improvements we're seeing. At this point, we don't have financial statements printed out of the system for you, probably largely due to Mr. Varen's vacation, but we will, as soon as we can, print out statements for you from the system. We are also challenged within the department, as probably you're all aware. We had one of our staff members is off on extended leave, and we've had a retirement from the department as well, and so we're a little bit short-staffed, and that is affecting us at this time of year with the audit going on. It's caused Jerry and his staff to put in a lot of extra hours to try and keep up with the timelines that the auditors have to deliver audited statements in order to meet Service Nova Scotia's requirements. So it's busy, but everybody's chin is up, and they're looking forward to the benefits that we will derive from the new system.
Good? Yarmouth Recreation, Frank's not here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. I have a concern that was brought up to me yesterday, and there's a town resident who's a little frustrated. He's come to Town Hall about a concern, and he's been told it's recreation. He's gone to recreation. They said it's town. Anyway, the concern is the Milo Boat Club. We have put in a very expensive ramp there, or a nice ramp for a boat launch, and the idea was people would be able to back their boats into the water and launch it. It's really nice, very efficient. However, the plan was that you'd be able, if you have a big truck or a big vehicle, you'd be able to pull into the dirt area, turn your boat, and swing it around inside there. Right now, recreation, or somebody is allowing parking right up to and including the boat ramp. So people with boats can't make that turn in there. So the question is, I guess we own the boathouse. Is there any way that we can put like a no parking or something there so that the boat owners, especially people with large trucks and the trailers, can, because right now in order to launch a boat with a truck and a large trailer, you have to be in the middle of the road. You have to go straight on the road and go straight down, and that was not, I believe, our original intent. Our original intent was that you'd be able to go in on an angle safely off the road without causing any issues to traffic. So I'm not sure how that could be handled, but this resident was concerned, and I told him I would bring it up today if there's some way that we could look after that. Maybe it's a traffic authority issue, or I don't know how we would handle it, but we need to get some parking spots freed up there for those trucks.
Go ahead. You know the...
Yep. It would be helpful if we could get the concern documented, even in an email to myself. The Milo Boat Club since 1996 has been under the management control of Leisure Services and now Yarmouth Recreation, and so the parking, the signage, the boat ramp, all of that is under their management. But if you can have the concern documented to me, I will discuss it with Frank and make sure that we either are able to resolve it or are able to report back on why it can't be resolved.
Good, okay. Business, 56 Argyle Street order. CAO?
Thank you, Worship. This is the order that came due last month, and Council provided an extension at the appeal hearing of 4 weeks. 4 weeks expired last week. However, our Committee of the Whole meeting was deferred 1 week. At the last meeting of Committee of the Whole, it was requested that the bylaw officer, Mr. Allen, be present and able to speak to the order. And so he is present and front and center. So Your worship, I guess I would suggest that maybe you hear from him, and then council has a decision to make.
Go ahead.
I put a package together for your review this morning. I made an inspection at 8:35 this morning, taking some pictures. And the picture, the first one you're situated over is a picture of the property before and the order of issues. And then the corresponding two pictures behind are what was taken this morning at 8:35. As you can see, the sill of the lot in front of the building has been repaired or replaced. Steps, the rock steps have been removed and new steps have been there. Second picture shows the sill that was still rotten on the east side, which was not completed as according to the order. And of course, we've got the standing broken windows and all that in the building that had to be repaired or replaced. And there was no option. Mr. Bouchard was given an option of boarding up, was not an option for him to board up if we replace the windows and the glass. So there's where we are as of 8:35 this morning on 56 Cardinal Street.
Councillor Dennis?
So were these sills replaced in the front, or was it just covered up?
No, I was there, during some of the repair, and they were removed and replaced.
Okay. So is there also supposed to be railings on the step, or is that to code?
The building department, which are not here, but I presume, yes, there has to be railings. The front steps were completed today after Russell was there,
So the other question is, what are we going to do about second floor and those windows up there? Because I guess from what I understand is there's children that get in the building and have been up on the roof and everything. So what?
I'm not aware of children being in the building other than the front door, but it's been successfully blocked for the past month. Window-wise, I was informed by Russell here in a couple of weeks ago now that when we sat here last, I was in the understanding that we had made a decision that I had before blessing to board up the windows. And then Russell called me and said he received an email after the fact telling me that it stopped and it wasn't allowed. And that if I was to get a boarding up permit as such, it would have to come from council, which I thought that we did not know. So nevertheless, we started in there. We spent a day or so in it and successfully boarded up and painted probably 3/4 of the main floor. But then at that point, I was told to stop.
So is the building itself livable?
Yeah.
So why aren't you renting it out?
Well, the building has no power in it. It's a fire distribution, which wasn't, it wasn't a very in-depth or a big job to repair. At the time, there was only one tenant there. At the time, my father was very ill, which it just didn't, it wasn't feasible. It didn't make sense at that time to invest the time and effort into it, to put it back on foot. But the actual quotes, the quotes that was done, one was by Maritime Radiation, which involved germains, I believe, for the electrical. I don't recall the rough carpentry, but it was a small fire between the second and third floor. And the biggest damage was done as in when the fire department cut the floor to do it. The estimates on the repairs in there were $5,000. Since then, it's seen some weather, because of the weather, because there's winter weather, because, vandals kick back door in. On the whole structure, it's going to be some change. It's just not, at this point, it is not, my mother can't do it, and I don't have time to. So we're hoping that somebody's interested in standing up and taking on this project.
So what is your plan with it? Like, I mean, we can't have a building boarded up and sitting there for how long? CAO, like, how long if we allow this to go through, how long does he have to do something with it?
Go ahead, CAO.
You had issued a 30-day order, or sorry, yes, you had approved the issuance of a 30-day order. You had granted a 4-week extension. So I will answer your question by asking the solicitor a question. If council agrees or is of the opinion that the order has been satisfied, then there is no longer an order or any time restriction on the owner in terms of any further work. Is that correct, Greg?
Yeah.
We need plain English.
Well, if you're satisfied the building is no longer dangerous or unsightly, then you don't, there's no further need, you can't proceed with this, the order that's been done. If you think that it's still dangerous and or unsightly, then you can either grant a further extension. Might be helpful to indicate what you wanted fixed up, I guess, to make it not dangerous or unsightly, and you can grant a further extension, or you cannot, and the order for the demolition would stand. With respect to boarding up the building, that would require the applicant applying for a permit to have the building boarded up, and those permits are good for a year, and then someone has to reapply for the permit to have the building boarded up. I don't know if that was plain English enough, or?
That was plain English. That was good. Okay, Councillor Landry.
Thank you, Your Worship. This has probably been one of the most called-on buildings that I've had to deal with, and for some time. I'm getting a lot of complaints on this building. I'm surprised the comment was made that they're unaware of kids getting into the building, because that is one of the most common calls that I'm getting. It's a safety issue. They're running up and down the back fire exit. Apparently they can access through the second floor, or there's a stairwell up there that they can readily access through a window or something, and they've been in the building. It is a concern. I have had complaints from neighbors who are considered about the state of the building and the yard. It's a bit of an eyesore. Be very, very blunt on this. And I can safely say that sitting around this table is one of them, other than the little one that we had on the corner of Stars and Brunswick, which was a common one. That one was demolished just recently. This has been at least number 2 in the pecking order. We have a glut of real estate, especially of apartments, and I'm personally not satisfied that the order has been fulfilled. I mean, the order is very clear. Yes, the steps have been replaced. Yes, the sill has been put on the side. I'm getting, although Mr. Allen did not comment, but I'm getting that from reading between the lines that the order is not completed. In other words, we still have the broken windows, and we still have the sills. There's some still sketchy sills there. So to me, the order is not at this point. So listening to Mr. Barrow, we have 2 choices. We either bite the bullet or we grant another extension. I'd like to, Councillor Dennis's question was well taken and was on my radar too. Well, okay, what's going to happen with this thing? I mean, are we kind of spinning our tires here? Is there an end result? Is there a tenant coming in here? Is there whatever? I mean, I know a lot of properties in this town are for rent, especially the older buildings like this one that just aren't renting. And I'm concerned that we've got to do something. And I mean, there's a few other buildings that I have on the agenda later, Your Worship, we got to look at as well. But this one is a big concern. So I'd like to know specifically a timeline. Like, what exactly is the plan here? You're painting the inside. Is the outside going to be cleaned up? What about the yard? Obviously, some of those staircases, I think, look a little like they could use some repair. I'm not sure on that. I'm not a structural. But maybe I'll start with Mr. Allen. I'm just curious from Mr. Allen. What do you see, if I may, through the CAO, if that's acceptable? Can I go direct a question to Mr. Allen?
Yeah. We just make sure you speak into the
Yeah.
microphone.
Mr. Allen, you've looked at the building, and I know you've been involved with the building. where do you see us at this juncture? Like, what do you think has to be done?
Pictures, I noticed that the east side of the sill has not been touched at all. The windows are a concern. They're still broken out. The order does specify that they need to be replaced or repaired. There is some doors there that are secure, but the windows in the doors are they're broken. And there's the stairs going up to the second floor. Some of the railings have been removed, kicked off, and that was due to vandalism. But that's an issue for, you know, the concerns of people using that staircase going up to the second floor. I've never been inside, so I haven't seen the fire damage, what's inside, but, you know, I think an inspection would have to be done inside to see if it's, there was a do not occupy order on that building from our previous building inspector, Bill Tebow, and I'm not sure if any of our building inspectors have gone through that building as of late. But there was an order not to occupy, and I'm sure that it would need to be inspected inside as well as these outside problems that we see here. So like I said, the sill is still not repaired, and there's a lot of window damage, and the glass hasn't been repaired at all. So that's what I see as of this morning, and according to my order, they have not been satisfied. The order has not been completely satisfied.
Go, just the microphone. Make sure you have the microphone.
I guess first and foremost, I'd like to say that I'm well aware of the order, what it was. As well, I mentioned it earlier, and a couple of you looked a little surprised, but no one commented on it. A month ago, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we sat in here a month ago and discussed this order, and at that time, you asked what I wanted. I said I'd like to have 30 days. The CAO spoke up and said, how about 28, because that's the next time we meet. There were some questions that went around the table, and if I'm not mistaken, you folks all, I guess, were in agreement to give me the 28 days to complete boarding the place up. That was the biggest concern we talked about then, the boarding up, and the question, I guess, the order was to replace or repair windows. And my question or appeal is that it wasn't financially feasible, and I requested that we board them up as long as they were boarded up with the same contour of the window and painted to match the trim or the outside. At that time, you guys said, yeah, go ahead. I started, as I said here a few minutes ago, a week or so later, Russell pulled in while I was working and told me that he was asked to inform me that I was no longer allowed to board the windows up, that the order still stood. I guess my question to start with is, you know, I was I guess a bit surprised, and I won't lie, a little bit angry, you know, because I could come and sit here and take my time and you guys' time and leave here with the understanding that all of you had said it was fine for me to board them up, and then sometime in the next few days somebody had a change of heart or changed their mind, and that was the end of it. I guess what I'm saying is the reason why the windows aren't boarded up is because I was told to stop. I had the windows well underway, and anyone who drove past or drives past now can see that. And that meant we took some boarding up down, and what wood was good, we cut to fit windows. What wasn't, we replaced, painted it. The front set of steps is in with a permit and completed. As I said, your photo doesn't show that, but that is done. As well, the back steps that you speak of, the spindles being broken off, that's kids and they're in the woods, but I replaced a bunch of them this morning. As well as the other two staircases on the property. I've gone up to the first landing, which is one I believe is 6 or 8 steps, and one is probably 10 or 12, high enough that the rail can't be climbed, and we've boarded that up with plywood across the staircases and added no trespassing signs to them. I guess what I'm saying is I've done everything in my power. I can't stop someone from putting a ladder up and going through the window, and it would be ridiculous for anyone to ask me to. But As far as the staircases looking like they need repair, those staircases were all done a couple years ago. Russell just made comment that at one point Bill Tebow had an order on that building. Once again, that order, that is well over 2 years ago, I think, Russell, I'm quite certain. And actually that was up with the previous owner. When we bought it back, that order was up. And there was, I don't recall it at this point, but there was a fire inspection done, the building inspector was through. And what they needed to see done was completed in order for us to reopen that and rent it. So the long and the short is, in the past 2 years, or since that order, I'll say, it was, I'll say, put back in shape and rented until the time of the fire, and at what point it was closed up. The damage that you see is vandals, and I guess a portion of it is boarded over to make it safe and secure, but the reason the other portion isn't boarded over is because I was asked to stop.
Thank you. Do you mind, Councillor? Okay, go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, I'll explain what happened with regard to the boarding up. This goes back to the beginning, really, of the boarded up buildings bylaw. The way the bylaw was written was misunderstood by staff. We received a clarification from the solicitor since the last committee of the whole meeting. So the way the boarded up building bylaw reads is it is council who issues the permit. So, we have staff who issue permits for all kinds of things and have over the last, I'm going to say 4 years since we've had that bylaw, issued permits. But in this case, when I clarified with the solicitor, there was no provision within that bylaw and no motion of council since to delegate that authority to staff. And so we as staff realized that we couldn't issue a permit in the way that we had for the boarding up of this building. And when we looked at the text within the order was to repair or to replace, not to board up. And so it left us in a position of saying, well, without a permit issued by council, in spite of what had been said here at the last meeting, without the permit and with the order that was approved by council saying repair or replace, we felt rather than have Mr. Dukeshire spend his money on boards only to have council maybe not issue the permit, we said stop with that work, or at least advise him that that is not a permitted course of action by council at this time.
So if I may ask, what's involved in getting a permit from council?
Go ahead.
Well, that process actually isn't established because none have been issued yet, but I would suggest a written request.
Okay. So is it safe to assume that it's the same council that we spoke last month? I mean, I'm not trying to be smart, but so with that said, would it be reasonable, based on everyone seemed to be in agreement with that a month ago, would it be reasonable for me to ask the same council for some time to request in writing for a boarding up permit?
How's that work?
Well, I guess if council was inclined to consider that, obviously you can't consider it until it's in writing, you would probably, you have this here today, so you'd want to extend this, maybe give another 2 weeks or to the council meeting in August, and then that would give Mr. Dukeshire an opportunity to make an application to council to have the building boarded up. And then council could consider that application at the council meeting, and then if it granted the application to board up the building, then it would make sense to deal with to make a suitable, I guess, arrangement with respect to the unsightly premises order.
Okay. Councillor Langell?
Thank you, Your Worship. The boarding up is not the big issue in my mind. My big issue is the actual structure itself. It's been 2 years since the actual structure's been investigated, that we've had an inspector in. I would have no problem moving and supporting a motion to grant an extension of a couple of weeks with the proviso that the building inspector and the fire inspector look at that building and give us an analysis to say, is this building a salvageable building? And in the meantime, we could put a caveat on it as well that he could do the boarding. Because the issue is we still don't know around the table, except from what Mr. Dukeshire is saying, and Russell's our bylaw officer, but he's not an engineer, he's not in that, we don't expect that of him to say it's safe or unsafe. But I think considering the fact that there has, since the last inspection, there has been a fire, it has been fallow for some time, there is some issues with the building, with obviously some environmental damage in the building. It's obvious from the outside. So, Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion that we extend this order for a 14-day period, subject to the agreement of the owner for a building inspection and a fire inspection with a report back to council at the end of that 14 days, or prior to the 14 days, and permission be granted to the property owner to board up the windows as required.
Well, I'm sure you can do it. Is the boarding up the only issue, Russell?
No,
It's not,
no,
not
we
the
still
only
have
issue.
some sill rot that has to be looked after, and there's some spindles on some of the staircases going up to the second floor needs to be replaced. I'd have to want to check with the doors. I didn't check the doors to see if they're secure today, but I'd have to go make sure that it's secure. Everything is secure. And of course, yeah, the broken windows is a concern. I mean, they need to be, I wish that he could address them right away, but if we're stuck in limbo for him not boarding it up for 14 days, so be it. But on safety concerns, it's for children getting in and all those broken windows. I do have an issue with that. I hate not to see it sit like that for 14 days.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may address my questions to Mr. Dukeshire.
Go ahead.
I was not present 5 weeks ago. And I'm not clear as to what your exact plans were then and what they are now. What are your intentions with the building?
Well, ideally, as I've said, we'd like to see the building sold.
Has it been up for sale?
Are you saying short-term plans, or are you saying long-term
Your plans, period.
Well, my plans,
Compared to-
period.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Compared to what?
5 weeks ago, because it has now been 5 weeks.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, my long-term plans certainly haven't changed. I attempted to change the short-term plans by doing what I said that I would do and board up the windows and see that it's secure. The building is secure. There's no question in my mind. Mr. Langell spoke about a complaint or a report that kids could climb through a second-floor broken window. That isn't happening. There is a window on the second floor, or halfway up the set of stairs to the second floor, that has been smashed, that has a hole probably the size of a football in it, that I noticed today, this morning when we were there working, goes directly through. But there's no, it's impossible for someone to climb through it. Traditionally, or as a rule, they have kicked the front door in, to the point that the mechanism on the doorknob or deadbolt don't work anymore. I rectified that a month ago with the only, I won't say the only last option, but I ended up putting a padlock hasp and a padlock on it that's bolted through the door, and it's got 4-inch screws into the door casing. So, I mean, what more can you do? Everyone's here's house is probably less secure than that front door right now, right? Outside of camping out and sitting on the steps, there's really, what do I do, right? But
That's what I'm asking.
well, I mean, the best I can do right now is really no different than anyone else who has a vacant property can do, and that would be to board all the windows up securely and board the doors up securely. And I guess outside of that, if someone wants in it bad enough, they're going to take boarding out down, or I'm not.
So in the last 5 weeks, what exactly have you done to the building, inside and out, and at what cost to you?
Nothing on the inside. We started on the outside. and successfully boarded up, or I'll say some of it reboarded. You know, for instance, where there was a piece of plywood over a window, that was removed. It was cut to fit inside of the window so that it looked a little better aesthetically, and it was painted. Probably 3/4 of the main floor was done. At that, and we stopped working because I was told to stop working.
Period, on the entire building,
Pardon me?
period. You were told to stop, period, stop to work on the entire building.
No, I was
on all
told
your
to, I
projects
was
that you
told
had
to
planned.
stop boarding it up.
Okay.
Since then, or I should say, shouldn't say since then, at that time, or when I left here 5 weeks ago, I went upstairs and I got a permit on that building, a permit to replace the front stairs and repair the sill, which a week or a week and a half later, whenever it was, the building inspector called me. I think, don't quote me, but I think it was a week ago Friday. She called and said that she had the application and that she had approved it. She had some questions for me. She said that she had approved it. Said that I believe a secretary was on vacation or a couple days off. Said that it would be a few days before I'd get an actual permit, but she had my blessing to go to work. So we went to work on the front stairs this week. We started, as you know, we've had a couple days of rain, but we did do the sill was done late last week. So I truthfully hadn't looked at the time frame that they allow on that permit, but the front sill and front steps have been completed, which leaves the side sill to do.
Bottom floor and also on the top. I understand, yes, the damage you claim is done through vandalism. Yes, some damage has been caused by vandalism, but much of this damage is caused through just years and years of neglect. If I'm going to go with whatever the council, what the majority decides on, part of me would like to be able to ask if I may access the building to see inside. I only, for however many, the last 18 years that I have seen this building has only been from the outside. It has not improved over the years, and lately the nocturnal activity has not decreased, especially under the front porch. I see little children, big children, adults going in and out at night underneath. I don't know. I'm going to go with the majority of what council does say. I feel for you, but I understand your family does also still have a number of other buildings.
Oh, there's a handful. Yeah.
How many is a handful, please?
In town? 3, 4, 5, half, 6, I think.
About half a dozen?
I think so.
And are they in the same state, or are they better? Or?
No, they're everything else has, outside of Forbes and Argyle, which I've just recently got the permit to demolish it. We're still waiting on checks from insurance, but with that said, we've arranged financing, and that job is paid for as of early this week. We're waiting for the contractor to have time to put a machine in there.
So this is your only so-called problem child?
Well, I wouldn't go that far on a personal note, but
No? All right, good. I don't want to hold everyone up. Thank you very much.
Councillor Langell?
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Dukeshire, yeah, back to it. And my motion, I guess, hasn't been seconded yet, but I'm still hoping somebody will. My view is that I think we need to know the status of the building as a physical structure, whether or not it can be saved or not, before we can make any meaningful decision. That house, and unfortunately the other house that you're in the process of demolishing, were two of the most stately homes in South End of Yarmouth. I can remember those. I know, Jim, in the day, those are beautiful homes. They were absolutely one of the most striking, and it's a shame that they've gone the way they've gone. And you know, I'm the type, if there's any way to save a building, I definitely would love to see the building saved. However, on the other hand, I hate to see good money going after bad and we run into issues. I will say that I have walked by that building. I do my early morning walks, and I have seen the door open. In fact, I've reported to Mr. Allen on several of occasions, and that's been within the last month. So I appreciate putting a padlock on the door. The property owners adjacent to you do tell me of children going in there, further to what Councillor Dawes is saying, in the evening, and they're not just little kids, they're fairly substantial teenagers, etc., and I would suggest they're probably not doing biblical readings there. So I would suggest that, anyway. So it's a safety concern, etc. So I still would like to see the motion stand, if somebody would second, just to give him a chance to finish the order. And maybe, Russell, part of that motion would be with the understanding that he would complete the order give him a 2-week extension to complete the order, with the request that the building inspector and fire inspector can go into the building and make recommendation, and upon that, to agree to the boarding up. I think that would cover, I think, what your concern is as well. And I don't know, can you live with that if somebody should second the motion?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that on the table
Okay.
if somebody cares to
All
second it.
right. I have another question. It's pretty blunt.
Ask away.
Well, you fix it, you board it all up and all that stuff, and I'll just say, if I had to live next door to that, I'd be pretty darn ugly. And I don't say that to be disrespectful.
You know what?
But the unsightly is just another concern on top of everything else, because people are trying to clean up neighborhoods and things like that, so.
Why don't the town buy that and make a park? It's a big lot. Would sell for the price of taxes we owe you.
Is there a for sale sign on it?
Actually, it's in the back seat of my car. Honest, I stopped and bought a marker on the way here.
So the, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
We've been talking about this item for a little while now, and I'm interested in Ken's motion. I'd like to ask is it doable? Is the 14 days enough time to complete what Ken is asking for? And on that, if it is doable, I would second the motion just to get it off the table. Interested, though, in what you just said about this possible sale of the house for the value of the taxes, but that isn't on the table officially. So I'm interested in seconding the motion and proceeding to a vote, which would put an end to the discussion.
Okay, so you just seconded that?
I did.
Okay. Councillor Dennis.
What I was going to say is, the house, I love the house. I think it's a beautiful house, if it had been taken care of. But our concern here is the safety of our public. And neighbors around your area have, on numerous occasions, said there was young people in that building, up on the roof, coming through the windows, and it's just not safe. So I can't, we gave you the 30 days, and 35. Yeah, and you haven't completed what was asked of you.
35 days. You gave me 28 days.
Yes.
28.
And midstream, I was told to stop.
Yes.
And
But still, the sills and everything haven't been done, as Russell said. So,
all right. So
That
what you're
has
saying
nothing
is
to do
your
with
your
the
stumbling block right now is that the sill isn't done.
no, I'm just saying that everything hasn't been completed like it was supposed to be.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Langell, I don't want to put you on the spot again, but the motion.
Anyway, the motion, roughly, if I can remember, Linda, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. Oh, Linda's got it, so she's got it, good.
Okay,
The order for 56 Admiral Street be extended for a 14-day period, subject to the agreement of the owner for a building inspection and fire inspection, and report back to council. At the end of the 14 days or earlier, and that permission be granted to board up the windows and the wall.
okay.
And I did add Mr. Allen's 2 points, and that the original terms, if the original order be complied with during that time period. Okay, that's be the original, the original order be complied with during that time period.
Okay,
Your worship,
yeah,
and
go ahead.
I think the last time Sam was here, I I had more concerns about safety and people getting in the building than anything else. That was my main concern, but we have an adjacent landowner right here, if he wants to say a couple of words. He's the one that lives closest to the property, him and his brother. I wonder if he's happy with the 2-week extension, or what his thoughts are.
Absolutely.
I have no problem with a 2-week extension or whatever, but my problem is, the building's been had fire.
Can you come up? Sorry, and please and thank you. It's hard to,
I've got no problem with it, but the intention is, the building hasn't been rented for 2 years. We've had the fire there. If I'm not mistaken, when the fire happened, Jason Middleton was passed out in the entranceway, and firemen couldn't even get in there. Well, I was there.
There was a time, I'd say within a month after, that Jason Middleton in the hallway was passed out.
okay, well, it doesn't matter how it
That's
started.
irrelevant.
Let's just, you
So-
direct,
He's been in the building, and he was passed out, and the RCMP were called. There's kids been running underneath the building. When your father was alive, I even called him with kids on the roof. I don't know your number. I could have caught the kids that had breaking windows. I didn't actually see them, but I said, hey, what are you kids are doing? I heard the glass break, but I couldn't prove it. So down the street they went. So the intent, we're going to leave this building in the shape it's in, and board it up for how long? We're going to do it for 2 weeks, but is this going to go on again? I've seen the work he's done and boarded up the windows, but you can go down there right now and look and see on the stairwells going up. The kids can fall through them. They run up the back. They're in these backyard nailing tree houses and whatever in the trees. You can go there and see it, you know? He just come down and mowed the lawn today. He's finished boarding up doing whatever work that he's doing. But I'm telling you, it's not a good element to live in, and I have no problem with him if he's going to fix the building up. None whatsoever. How long? Abandoned buildings, teens, whatever, they seem to get into them. The inside of that building, however, is another sight to be seen. If you don't believe me, you get the key and you go and look, and they get in there, they're smoking cigarettes or doing whatever they're doing, and that building catches on fire. Where are we at? That's my opinion. I've seen it all there. I mean, when his dad was alive, I called him. His dad was good. He come down and he looked after the issues. I don't know his number, but it's a never-going, ending battle every day, every week. So I can prolong this for another 2 years, or you can do whatever you want, but that's not going to rectify the solution to the problem that we have.
we have no intention, I don't think, of letting it
But
go.
the
It's whether
thing
it's
is, what
2 weeks or not.
actually is his intention
Yeah.
of fixing up this building? He just said 2 years, and his long-term thing is to sell it. But it's an eyesore, and you go in there, and I'll guarantee you, maybe I'm wrong, but those sills aren't fixed up quite the way that they're supposed to be.
Well, no, that was
Yes.
one of the issues, that it wasn't done.
And,
Councillor Mooney, did you?
and Garner, I'm just going to ask the fire chief a question. I know is, the fire inspector goes in there, so the fire inspector goes in, John, right? What happens after that? I know goes in, he looks at the building. Does he probably comes up with what needs to be rectified, what needs to be done on a fire safety side. But then with this solicitor here, what about the building inspector? What are their responsibilities at the end? I know we want them to go in, but I think we've been sitting around the table before, and maybe not this council, where we've asked the building inspector to give us a quote on how much something would cost to fix, to put it in context. And the building inspector said, that's really not my job, right? I can't really estimate or guesstimate a job for you. But unless, when Mr. Winship comes back with his report and when our building inspector comes back with their report, we don't know how much this stuff's going to cost to fix a building. So it could be $10,000, it could be $350,000 to rectify all the problems. So I think we're going to need, I don't know if 2 weeks is a very short amount of period of time to ask these guys to go in and do those inspections. But I would just like to know what Mr. Winship would do when he comes out of that thing, John. What's the story on, what would he do?
Okay, if the fire inspector goes inside any building, doesn't matter what type it is, he's going to take the code that applies to that building. He's going to go inside it, he's going to look everywhere in the building, and he's going to mark down every deficiency. And then once he gets that deficiency, he makes up a report and hands it in. And that's basically all he can do. He can't give you how long it should take to fix up. He can't give you how much it's going to take to fix up. He can only tell you that this is a life safety issue, this is a fire safety issue, and all this kind of stuff. And that's all you're going to be able to get from him. But when you compile that report with a building inspector and anyone else, you can put it all together, then make your decision from that. But just like the building inspector, he can't tell you how much it's going to cost. It's not his expertise.
The one thing, he said, you know, which just was a minor fire, and $5,000 would fix up that building. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give him $5,000 if he can fix that building up and rent it for $5,000. There's no way. There's no way in hell. But you send the inspectors down there and you have a really good look at it, and then you say that you want to live next to that building. And you know, it's not just me living next to the building. I'm more worried about the kids and whatever else goes on in that building. And I'm pretty sure it was the night of the fire when Jason was there, but I could be wrong. But it was definitely one night that the RCMP were called, and there was other teenagers in the building, and they were doing drugs and everything else. So.
I think each of us, or most of the majority of us at this table, have heard about the people, the complaints about the people coming in, and you can board up all you want. They're still going to get in. So go ahead, Russell. I don't think.
Come the end of the day, if the building is, you know, it can be fixed up inside according to the building inspector or the fire marshal, and we give them a year's permit to board up the windows. Come the end of the day, we have a building that's going to be sitting there boarded up.
For another
Do we
year,
need
exactly.
do we need to go through another year? We need to get these reports, make a decision, and do something. Because I'm getting call after call. I know Mr. Garnet Horton here lives next door, but I still get a lot of the brunt of those calls concerning that building. Yep. And it's come the end of the day, come to the end of the chase. Do we want it sitting there like it is for another year, even though he gets a boarding up permit and everything is it's fine inside? Because his short-term goal is to sell it, but what happens if he doesn't? So there we have that. That building's sitting there for another year, boarded up.
Yeah. And that's my problem with the boarding up permit. It grants that extra 52 weeks, and that's the problem that I have with the whole process, right? And the original thing when he was here last time, it was a safety issue for me. I have the same calls and I've had the same questions, the same comments from people, not only that building, but the building on the corner, right? The Forbes, Argyle Street. It's people getting in those buildings, and I'm concerned about what's going on in there, safety. If there's a fire in there and what the fire chief has to put up with, they don't know if there's, if you put somebody at risk going up those steps, they don't know if there's somebody in there, if there's somebody isn't. That makes a difference on how you're going to fight a fire. So, if the building inspector goes in there, but I think we're going to have for a ballpark figure, costs associated with the recommendations that the building inspector and the fire inspector make a proper decision.
Okay. I know I'm not willing for the 52 weeks. Go ahead, CAO.
Your Worship, I apologize for stepping out of the room, but I had a quick conversation with Mr. Dukeshire, and I'd like to have a brief discussion in camera with council.
Motion to go in camera. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
do it. But in those were kids that were, I don't even know if they're still there. But I do know that you can fix it up, whatever. But I don't want it. Just not for me to that, the price of taxes. Yeah. You know, it's a shame, I mean, it's all oak inside, it's never been stained. That was a McDonald house, and that was a beautiful home. And that's a nice piece of property. Big piece of property. It was a big property. You're going to China, I don't know if China, that's my well, listen, that's if there's something else to go to council, I'm not going to go to council when they just ask me that. But that's the truth. I don't have any ill will. I really, it's a pain in the ass. You know, I'm not going to stand around and watch somebody hand me property around the whole way. It's a shame because it held passion. It still does. And you know what the rental market is? Oh, yeah. You're a third generation. And I don't want to speak ill anyway. But you know what? Now we're working with third or fourth generation to get their hands on and sandwich and buildings like that. You want to get a but he busted the window. He busted the window of my brother's house. You're shooting paintballs and they hit my house. I went over and I told him, and he said, I'll throw you a letter from my big man. He's coming down there, telling lies. I said, who do you think called on? He was shooting at people flying their cars down the street. They hit one guy in the head with a paintball off the front. They busted blue house and everything. This is past, but I mean, you know, there's nothing you can do. And that doesn't matter whether you know something. If you that's right. No. No. But you know what? Apple and the yellow and well, one garbage. That's it. In the last year or two, fighting in there, 2 Street. Remember that place? Next to old buildings. That might be a plan. Might be the plan. He never did have what he was supposed to do. Who's scared? He's got it.
Okay, good. Councillor Langell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a motion that we table the motion on the floor until the next meeting of council.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Question?
Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried.
I'd like to make a second motion, Your Worship, that we extend the current order for a period of not to exceed 7 days.
Okay, so moved. Second by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Question's been called. Oh, sorry.
I'm not going to speak for her, but I want to make sure that Sandy, Councilor Dennis, understands.
You good? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Good to go. Thank you. Thank you, Russell. What's that? Oh, for Russell, yes. Okay. So we are at B. Okay, so just so we know, we're out of here at 4 o'clock. 3:59, and that includes anything in camera. 7B, 2014 sewer flushing. CAO?
Your Worship, this is a memo from the engineer concerning sewer flushing, video inspection, vacuum cleaning. His recommendation is in his memo to award to the lowest overall tender, Parties Waste Management and Industrial Services Limited, and that's for your consideration.
I was waiting for the light. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Have we used them before? I suspect that they have an excellent reputation, and that's why we're going with the lowest bid. Yes, yes?
We've never used them before, but their personnel and operations manager was with another company at one point in time that we had used previously. We had no problems with them.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Councillor Langeau?
I'd like to make a motion, Your Worship, that the contract for the 2014 sewer flushing, cleaning, and video inspecting be awarded to Parties Waste Management and Industrial Services Limited as per the engineer's recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Yes, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Just on a point of order, I'm wondering if, with council's indulgence, if we could go to the item on 301 Main Street, then Russell could leave, because there were items before, because I know he's got other pressing, and I know that's a very brief thing, if council would agree to that.
Yep, let's do it. Okay, update on 301 Main Street. Go ahead.
That's the building that was under, it was under an order. We had a meeting with legal and the CAO, and it was, I had a meeting with them, I think the end of May, and the legal department recommended that that building go to the building inspecting department, where they can go and have access to the building, and if an engineer need to be hired, under that bylaw, minimum housing center, they could get an engineer in there and table a report to see if that structure is safe, how the integrity of the floors and the brickwork, whether it's going to fall down today or it's not going to fall down for 100 years. So having said that, I left the office, and I presume that 301 update building was passed on to the building inspection office.
CAO?
Your Worship, the file was passed to the building inspection office, and I've requested an update. The building inspector who took the file was also out of office for a while, so it's that time of year, but I don't have an update for you, but I have already requested one, and as soon as I have it, I'll advise council on I guess what we can do in terms of a course of action.
Good. Go ahead.
There is a present order on the building, correct?
There, present order, yes, there is.
So when is that order up?
That order was up the end of May.
And it has not been complied with?
It has not been complied with.
And did this council extend the order?
No, they have not.
So where do we stand on that?
CAO?
I don't have a copy of the order in front of me. Russell, did you bring one today? You don't?
I have one in my desk. I can get here within 3 seconds.
Okay, one.
Yes, you want to
Fill in 2 of those 3 seconds. Thank you very much,
commercial
Your
break
Worship.
coming to you from Councillor Duff.
I beg your pardon?
It's a commercial break coming to you from Councillor Duff.
I just wanted to take these 2.5 seconds to thank our Public Works Department, Mr. Ernst. Thank you very much for the flushing. Was it 7B here, the flushing cleanup video inspection? That you are going on with it, that we are in, what, step 3 of 4.5? How far are we in this process now? This is making very, very, very many of our residents happy. I just wanted to put that plug in, and also for them to be reassured that that the town is taking steps to remedy some of their problems.
I don't know exactly what you're referring to. You're
We just
talking
did,
of-
we just did 7B. I think we just awarded the contract. We
Yes.
haven't done
Yes.
anything yet.
No, we haven't yet, but just the fact that we are letting the residents know that we are taking the next steps. This is step what, 4 out of 7 or 8? Before it's all done?
We do this every year annually. We do a 5-year cycle.
Annually on a
five-year
5-year cycle?
Sewer flushing and cleaning, yes.
All right.
I'm missing something, I guess.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that the counselor may be thinking about Argyle Street.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and there is a tender further down related to Argyle Street and infiltration and so on. But the tender that was just discussed was with regard to video inspection, flushing, and vacuum cleaning. So as the engineers indicated, that is more or less routine maintenance. We do the entire town on a 5-year cycle, so every year 1/5 of the town gets their sewers flushed and the catch basins vacuum cleaned. Is that, well, the catch basins are done annually. It's the sewer pipes themselves.
We do catch basins twice a year, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And video inspection, have we got video inspection on the same cycle every 5 years?
No, not necessarily. We do video inspection just to see the condition of sewers in town. So eventually we'll have it all done, but
Yeah. So, but it isn't, this is not the one that's related to specifically Argyle Street, which I think is what you were perhaps referring to?
Yes, thank you both very much. I'm still trying to stretch the time.
Yeah.
And at the same time,
Waits.
inform our residents what actually
Waits.
is being done.
7C, weights for wastewater
Yeah.
effluent pipe. CAO, you want to do 7C?
Yes, okay, so 7C is with regard to the supply only of the concrete collars for the wastewater outfall pipe that was dislodged in a storm this year. And so the recommendation here is that the supply of the ballasts for the effluent pipe be awarded to VJ Rice Concrete in the amount of $28,800 plus HST for a total amount of $33,120. That's for your consideration.
Councilor, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to move the lowest tender. I'm curious, there's a huge difference between Borshad and the lowest tender. I was just curious about that. So
I think the rest of us can turn off the lights on that. Because that's what I think
Yeah.
we're sharing that question.
Do you have, you wouldn't, would you have an answer to that?
not really, other than Borchard is owned by Stresscon, which is an Irving company.
Okay,
Why they're so high, I have no idea.
yeah. Okay. So, yeah, moved and seconded. Anything else you wanted to? Yep, question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Let's do Clements Avenue, we can cross off. Councillor Langell, we're good? Okay, Rotary Club of Yarmouth. Yeah, we're going back. Oh, this is another tender. I just figured we'd get into it on that one. 7D, Argyle Street. No, but I mean, I'm so excited that it's getting done. I think it's like a...
Okay. So proposals were requested from 3 consultants to undertake a sanitary sewer inflow infiltration investigation and storm sewer capacity assessment on Argyle Street, including recommendations for remediation measures. 2 proposals were received, and the results are summarized by the engineer in this memo. After reviewing the proposals by each consultant, it is recommended that the contract be awarded to ABL Environmental Consultants to undertake the inflow infiltration sanitary sewer study and storm sewer assessment. As well, ABL Consultants had included smoke testing in the sanitary sewer in their proposal to identify any illegal connections. So that is for your consideration.
Okay. All right, so the recommendation is ABL, moved by, okay. Go, no?
Can I second it then, may I?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Moved and seconded. Okay. Any more discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Rotary Club of Yarmouth tax accounts. We're getting a lot done in 3 seconds. CAO?
Thank you, Worship. Okay, so at the last meeting, council approved a new lease to the Rotary Club of Yarmouth for the property on the corner of Prospect and Pleasant Street, which they've used for a park for 10 or 15 years now. In the original lease that we had, they were responsible for taxes. They would apply for a grant, we would give them a grant, they would pay the taxes. The last couple of years, council did not provide the grant, although they did approve this year to do a new lease, and we did a below-market lease for $1, and they're no longer responsible for the taxes. There is an arrears on the account, and what I'm asking, rather than having them request a grant and have it come out of our grants, is just simply a tax write-off as an uncollectible account for the arrears on the account, the Rotary Club's account, for the property on the corner of Pleasant Street and Prospect Street.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Just a question on that whole park. Now, they lease it from us, so do they maintain it, or are we maintaining it?
CAO?
It's, I would say, at best a shared situation. Certainly the improvements that are done to the park, like the gazebo that's there, the rock that is there, and so on, have been their initiatives. Mm-hmm. But as far as I know, it is our staff who mow it and provide general maintenance.
Because the original plan of the Rotary Millennium Park was their Millennium Project that they undertook there originally. And I know a lot of the trees have been planted by the town in many cases, and Communities in Bloom has been involved there as well a bit. And I do believe we have a group that's interested in that as possible as a dog park or something along that. It's one of the sites that's been suggested. How long is the lease for? Is it an annual lease? I wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm just curious, how long was that lease for?
Go ahead.
I'm going from memory, but I believe it's an annual lease, but it renews automatically.
So would we be best served just simply it's in arrears now, but what will be happening in the future? Is Rotary going to be applying every year are they going to be playing the tax game, or are we better off just simply say, that's it, have a nice day?
The new lease that was approved provides that they are not responsible for taxes. So it is still our property, and so there was no taxes charged. The old lease made them responsible for taxes, and that's why there was this issue. And so we've cleaned that up, and this is only intended to really deal with an arrears that we had traditionally been dealing with through our grants, and rather than use up our grant resources this year, suggesting a write-off.
So, it's our park, and we mow it. Because I don't either I'm missing something, or I don't know what the question is. The question is, we named it? They named it. So if one of those, I don't want to get into the dog thing, but so for example, somebody comes and we decide that is a good place for an off-leash dog park,
We own it.
we own it, and we can say yes. Okay, so I'm just sort of like, yeah. CAO?
No, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you. I just thought I was missing something with the lease thing, because I didn't understand the...
And again, senior moment here, and just further, and I'm like the mayor, I'm a little fuzzy here too. So we own it, we maintain it. My question is, if we want to improve it in any way, let's say hypothetically, and this has been a discussion point, it's come up a couple of times now, if we want to improve it, i.e. put maybe a little walkway in there because there's no walk access as such to the gazebo part, like a little building or something, or bathroom facilities, or whatever, or maybe we could have that's a growing area, you may want to put a small water feature in there for the kids, you know what I mean?
Let's build some duplexes.
Is that yeah, there we go, there he is. Do we have to go through the Rotary Club to do that, where they leased it, or can we do any of these improvements outright ourselves? I know our solicitor has left us, but I'm curious.
Yeah, no, if you want a proper answer to the question, we can take it away and come back with it. I don't have the lease in front of me, but as I recall from the discussion, and Linda's clarified for me, it was a 5-year lease, but thereafter, year to year. But there is an out clause. I believe it's a 90-day out clause.
Okay.
So,
Oh, yes, I do remember that from the last meeting.
okay, so if we had ideas for the park under the current lease, I would suggest that the lease is worthless if we just went ahead and did things, that we would engage with the Rotary Club on any improvements, and they may be joint improvements or what have you. But at the end of the day, we haven't sold our soul on this one forever.
And we're in amiable terms with the Rotary Club. They're
Absolutely.
working with us on that, so that's indeed a possibility. Because I wouldn't mind to get a copy of the lease. I'm just curious what's in that. If it's possible to make that available, that'll be great. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Well, Russell, welcome back. It's the fastest 3 seconds I've ever seen.
I have to apologize, Committee of the Whole. That order was looked at probably Monday or Tuesday this week by myself, and it didn't get put back in the right file, so I haven't been able to find it on my desk. But if you want to give me 5 minutes to go on to other issues, I will find it and bring it in, if that's acceptable.
You need another 5 minutes.
I need another 5.
Because I'm telling you, mister, we accomplished some...
I think I'm stretching here a little bit, but I thought I knew exactly where it is, and then, of course, when I went there, it wasn't because I hauled it out this week and was looking at it.
You
so.
go ahead, because we got some pile of work done in your absence.
Okay, so I'll be right back.
Okay, good. Okay, so the Rotary Club is looked after, and we are going back to, we're just going back to G. Am I right? Okay. So H, you just had update there, Counselor. You good? Okay. Mahone Bay, Counselor Mooney?
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. If you read the paper, I think yesterday's paper, they're talking about holding conventions and meetings in Mahone Bay and the lack of infrastructure they have, but the community use of facilities that are already in place, like i.e. restaurants, schools.
Yep.
I just wonder if we can make the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association maybe have, get us a list of assets here in the community instead of, building a brand new, and I'd like to see it, brand new hotel with a $50 million convention center, maybe use some of the assets we already have in place to host events, because that's going to be one of the concerns when we go to Charlottetown this fall with Communities in Bloom about facilities big enough to hold 300 or 400 people, but with, the community theater in Perron-Bas, vocational Burge campus, the new high school. We have those facilities already in place, but not all under one roof. So just something that maybe Councillor Dennis can pass on to Charles and Neil at Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. I think it was in yesterday's paper they were talking about Mahone Bay, and they held a national convention. So
And we do it all the time. Like
we do it all the time, but it sounds like Mahone Bay was the first one to ever do it, and we've, like you said, we've done it with Nova Scotia Music Week, and we've done it with the hockey, and we've done it numerous times, but, just get the word out there that we are capable and able to do things like that.
Good? You're good? Thanks. Thanks, Bill. Okay, correspondence for action. Yarmouth Dog Society request to present. So, okay, so there's a letter here, and they're requesting to present at the next committee of the whole. And they'll send us a letter, who they are, how they became to be, all those types of things, as well as 3 sites that they would recommend for our consideration. And they would send that prior to the meeting. So we just need to decide if we want them to come in or what. So I need a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. What's the motion? The motion is to have the Yarmouth Dog Society present at the next committee of the whole. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried. Request for presentation, services for seniors pilot project. Go ahead.
Here's where I'm going to get in trouble. I can see this coming. Yeah. I know I'm going to bite the bullet here, and this is where I'll be probably painted badly. I've had a couple of questions asked me. Tri-County Women's Centers is this service for seniors pilot project, which sounds somewhat similar to the senior safety officer concept. I think it's very similar to that. And I apologize to the ladies in the room, and I'm not making light of it, but it is a concern. that has been expressed to me by a senior male. Because I asked him about this, he said, well, the concern is the last place that I would call as an 82-year-old man is the Tri-County Women's Center for Senior Safety. And he said, am I right or wrong, when he asked me that? And I said, that's a very good point, you know, because just by the Tri-County Women's Center, you're assuming it's looking after women's issues, and therefore 50% of the population roughly is female, and that's wonderful, but what about the Tri-County Men's Center, which we don't have one? So there's a question here. So I really have an issue with the Tri-County Women's Center applying. I think it's a good project, but right now we've got so many agencies in this town that are more or less doing this. We have Argyle Home Support. They've got 42 care workers, which Councillor Mooney and I are on that board, which are going into homes all the time. Councillor Dawes, she's with the VON. She's got her people going into homes all the time. There is the police. We have a community liaison officer who's involved with a lot of the boards and agencies. We have a lot of people, and this has been brought before not only this council but the previous council before, and Councillor Mooney can hopefully chime in here, but it's been discussed. We have a lot of agencies, and as Clifford Hood would say, we're cross-piling sawdust over knotholes here, which I absolutely love that expression. But I mean, we're duplicating a service, and I mean, we as a council have not followed up on the funding, because there is a funding that's available, and CEO can correct me, there's a $25,000 carrot, I believe it is, if we want to apply for. And we as a council in the past traditionally have not applied because we are rich with all of these agencies who are doing this. We've got some of the best seniors homes, some of the best care workers in the area. So I'm really not very enthused about this, Your Worship. I think it's a nice initiative on their part, but besides the mail situation, I just think we're doing a lot now, and I have yet, and I ask any councillor around the table, I've yet to have one complaint. Well, I should say I did have one of one parent, one lady who was having issues, and I did pass it on to the RCMP, but that was about the only one in sitting around this table for going on 8 years, 9 years now. So I've only had one, and I really can't support it.
Okay. So I guess the idea would be for a motion if we want to. I can't support it either because I'm not a fan of duplication, period. I can just say it in shorter term, but you could take a lesson from how I shortened that up. And just,
Therefore and whereas. Yeah, and I don't know if she's coming in here looking for support. You know, the thing I'm afraid of is when you support initiatives like this at the start, and then you get downloaded in the future.
well,
right?
there's I don't know if y'all got to reading it, but there's, you know, the hiring of people, and
Yeah.
so there's a price tag with it, and
Yeah.
there are agencies that are looking after this.
And, you know, it might be good for Kathleen to come in and explain the project to us, but I don't think that's going to hurt, but, and differentiate between, you know, the VON services, the Yarmouth Argyle Home Support Services, and there are some other ones too that we're missing that provide the same type of services. So I have no problem with Kathleen coming in to speak to us, but like, you know, I'm no fan of duplication either.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I agree with all of you. However, and whereas, that's why I would make the motion to invite Kathleen, Tri-County Women's Center, to come and present. But it doesn't have to be all day. It just has to be a short version of what they intend to do, what they're looking to do, where, obviously they have sat down with other service providers, and there are holes. There are holes in services that are really required out there by people that they're like 13-year-olds. They don't belong in anyone's world. They're not kids. They're not adults. And eventually, if we're lucky enough to live long enough, we will find ourselves in the same situation, same slot all over again.
So
there are needs everywhere. Yeah. I would say invite her in, let her explain to us, and then we can always make decisions.
Because everything's written, there's a nice report here, it says everything.
It is, yes, it is.
Okay?
So, that's my motion, thank you.
Okay. Any more discussion? Questions been called? All those in favor? Contrary? Nay. Okay, so we invite Kathleen. Friends of the Art Gallery remod Lewis Street. Councillor Langell? Or Councillor CAO?
Councillor CAO, yeah. So the question I think that came up, the request was to consider the renaming of the street. And so the question was raised at the last meeting about Hawthorne Street and where that name came from, that we ought to know that. And so Linda did some digging, and as far back as we can find, and we're talking 1858, at least 1858, the street was known as Hawthorne Street. We could not find any record of how that name came to be, but if one was to guess, based on some of the information she found, there was a prominent citizen, I believe a doctor, back around that time who was credited in historical record for introducing hawthorn hedges to Yarmouth, and Yarmouth was known somewhat for these hawthorn hedges. And so it wasn't a native species, I gather, this white hawthorn, and it may have been that around that time that people were so enamored with this hawthorn that they put the name on a street. That's about as close as we can come. So that is to say we have no definitive historical record on why Hawthorne Street was named Hawthorne, but in the context of considering renaming it Maud Lewis, that's the best we can offer you today.
Okay, Councillor Langell.
I'm wondering if maybe a place for this would be to go to the Heritage Committee, as a thought, and let the Heritage Committee look at it. I'm just wondering, I don't want to delay things, but I don't think there's any great pressing consideration for it. I don't know what council feels, so I'd like to make a motion. We just refer to the Heritage Committee and let the Heritage Committee chew around on it. Give them something to chew around.
Councillor Dawes?
Thank you, Worship. I would say, is it not up to, wouldn't it be in the interest of those that, well, I don't know how many live on Hawthorne right now, but the businesses that are there, that are established there, all of their letterheads, all of their, everything to do with their mail and their identity has been established on Hawthorne Street. Would it not be really those people, those companies that should be consulted at first, if they are even willing to? Because there's going to be a lot of time and a lot of cost involved in changing their address. I would say that would be the first place to go, is to consult with the people, the businesses that are already on Hawthorne Street. And then I'll let you jump in.
Go ahead. I think we got other options too. I don't like, Jody Shelley Drive was kind of a one-off, but I don't like changing names of streets. I like maybe if we get in new streets like Sarah Corning Drive out off the Haley Road. And we might have an opportunity over the next year or so with the new park down in Yarmouth South that we're all seem to be looking to jumping on or looking to create. It could be the Maud Lewis Park down there, you know, with some, you know, modified benches and some other things. But to change names of streets, I really can't support that. It might be a good idea to bring it back to Heritage, have a look at it, but at the end of the day, I don't think I could support the name change just because Maud Lewis is a famous Nova Scotian, a famous Yarmouthian. I know everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. You see, you know, they took the old house off of up in Plimpton, they moved that somewheres, and then they down in Liverpool way they have another rebuilt Maud Lewis house, and then in Digby they have the other house back again, and then in the Valley they've done something with Maud Lewis. So, you know, we have five or six people that are starting to lay claim to Maud Lewis, but maybe we could do it with a park down in Yarmouth South.
I think it's because the letter says she lived there.
She
on the
lived there,
corner,
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know the reason, I know where she grew
Yeah.
up,
Go ahead.
But wasn't, can I be correct here, but wasn't she South Ohio originally?
No.
Because that's what something in my mind, and I'm trying to recall this, that she originally was born in South Ohio. She moved to Yarmouth Town.
Well, okay.
You see, the family moved to Yarmouth Town, but maybe, yeah, Jim, I think, I know, Jim, I don't know if you recall, but I remember vaguely the story, but she's born, the roots are South Ohio. She's a county gal, and then she came into the town later on. Now, I can be corrected on that, and they moved, and they had a number of addresses in the town, but anyway, but just, I'm not sure. But that's why I said it'd be nice to turn it over to the Heritage Committee, let the Heritage Committee look at it and come back with maybe a recommendation to council. I don't think this is a real pressing issue, and I'm with Councillor Mooney, unless we have a good reason to change the direction.
Could I make a recommendation then, for you to consider on your motion? For, if you want Heritage Committee to look into it, I'm fine with it, but I would strongly suggest that the Heritage Committee first sit down with Sandra Finney. She has done extensive, what's the word I'm looking for, please? Thank you, research on this, and it looks about 99 point, more than that, % sure that she was born here in town. So Sandra Finney has done all that research. She's got all the information. You may want to consider. I'm not telling you what to put in your motion, but I would suggest that that it be part of the research. Yeah, sit down with her.
Go ahead.
It says that she was born to John and Agnes Dowley in South Ohio, Nova Scotia.
Yeah. And Sandra found
And that's,
evidence to the contrary. That was
that's the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia says that.
Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter where she was born, it's about getting this, what do we want to do with this? So the motion is to send it to Heritage. Every time you clear your throat, I think you got your light on. So the motion is to send it to the Heritage Committee. Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion carried.
Me again.
What's up, Mr. Allen?
It's me again.
Yep. Okay, CAO?
Thank you, Russell and Mr. Allen, for retrieving a copy of the order so swiftly.
I won't live that down.
No, but thank you for that. I've had a chance to review it, and to discuss a legal issue, I would request that we adjourn to an in-camera session to discuss.
Unless we took care of additions and everything else, so we're good to go in camera. No, it's just placed on file and motion to go in camera again. Okay, good, in we go. Huh? Oh, CAO?
He's gone in.
It's gone in there?